Alright guys, so with games like Manor Lords just released in April and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 on the schedule for later this year, or games like the wacky Kingmaker or open world survival game Bellwright, it's sure looking like 2024 is the year for medieval gaming. So I'm gonna bring this up again because it seems like a pretty good time to think about it. Why is there still no Medieval 3 Total War? I mean, come on, one of the biggest reasons that most Total War fans seem to write off a new major historical game like Empire 2 or Medieval 3 is that these settings are just not popular enough. Pharaoh being set in the obscure and little-known Bronze Age I can kind of get, of course, but looking at Manor Lords, an indie-developed game that launched into early access, so it's not even a complete game, and yet it had a release peak of 173,000 players. A medieval game had that peak of 173,000. That is crazy. That figure demolishes Rome 2 Total War with its high of 118 and beats all the other historical games barring Three Kingdoms, which reached 191,000, and it's even a bigger release than Warhammer 3 Total War's initial peak of 166,000 players. Think about that for a moment. Manor Lords, an indie medieval game, beat out Warhammer 3 Total War. Now granted, Manor Lords is quite a unique game in and of itself. There are city building mechanics that we seldom see, it's mixed in with some warfare that while early days is still quite fun, it's got fabulous, almost realistic looking graphics and animations, and there was a ton of hype riding on it, so I would say it's a pretty special case. But still, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is reported to have a development budget of a feature film, somewhere around $40 million. Warhorse Studios wouldn't be spending that kind of money if there weren't players out there willing to pay for top quality RPGs set in the medieval era of human history. So clearly there is a lot of appeal out there for this, much more than people in the wider Total War community actually believe. The fact is, the Warhammer games are very different to the usual Total War games the series has seen. They are Warhammer first, Total War second, and what I mean is most people when they get into the games are huge fans of the Warhammer universe, or they become big fans of it, and so are deeply engrossed, enjoying the personalities of leaders, figures, and units brought to life on an engaging campaign that we've never seen before. They're enjoying this huge world recreated on this map of massive scale with small nuanced details representing lore and character things that they've read here and there. They're buying each of the DLCs in droves because each DLC adds new content from this lore that they have immersed themselves into, that they are personally attached to, which is great and good for them. This is for me kind of akin to Star Wars Empire at War. Like, I enjoy playing the game because I get to play with and watch Star Destroyers obliterate a Rebel Nebulon frigate or an X-Wing squadron. It's like 40% strategy, 60% look at the turbo lasers destroying the Rebel scum. That's partly why I think the Warhammer games have suffered so much. Creative Assembly are battling two fronts at the same time, with making the games as true to fantasy Warhammer lore as possible without provoking the ire of Games Workshop or the loyal fans, and making the game actually fun to play while sticking closely to that lore. It's an extremely tough balance, but what that has done is severely undercut what makes Total War games traditionally Total War: strategic, with meaningful decision making in favor of making a proper Warhammer game. The point I'm trying to make here is that a new Medieval 3 wouldn't suffer from this issue at all. Okay, sure, they would need to get some historical authenticity and immersion right, which it seems like they're doing a good job of lately with other games anyway, but they wouldn't have to focus so hard to bring it all to life in the absolute perfect way possible. They could focus all that developmental resource and investment into making a Total War game first, with all the deep and traditional design that comes with it, and a medieval game second. Now, while we're on the topic, guys, if you're looking to buy medieval games or historical games in general, like Age of Empires, Kingdom Come Deliverance, or Manor Lords, now is a great time to get huge discounts on Instant Gaming, a reputable game key reseller that I've personally bought plenty of games from in the past. It's reliable, safe, and offers some of the best discounts I've seen on the games I'm in the market for and future games I've got my eye on. You can get up to 90% off the entire catalog catalog and up to 88% off all of the Total War titles and DLCs as well. So if you want to save some money on new games and of course support what I do here on the channel as well, click the first link in the description below. Now where were we? Oh yes, Medieval 3 Total War. The real question when we come down to it is, can CA even do this anymore? I mean, CA Sofia, the development team that has been producing the latest of the historical games like Troy and Pharaoh, have largely been following the game design ethos of the Warhammer games, and that's very plain and clear. We've got character-focused factions with personalities, motivations, traits, customizable equipment, etc. That's all getting very boring very quickly. We've got this slapstick resource economy system that works kind of from an economy perspective, but completely removes any sort of strategic depth from diplomacy, and this design just doesn't punish you enough. You get buffs on buffs and no real consequence to your decision making. No long-term penalties that you need to just live with because that's the playstyle you've decided to do. No real choice to gameplay. It's historical in setting, but it's just not enough Total War. Now that being said, CA have been trying to turn this ship around a bit of late. Not only is the next major update for the game going to expand the map into the full scope of the Bronze Age era, which was one of my primary complaints, but they're also planning on making these immortal characters all mortal, with succession systems that presumably means there might be an internal family or court mechanic, which is a step in the right direction. But in the case of Pharaoh, I still think there's just too much here that can't really be reversed. The core of the game still bears the marks of a Warhammer-style design approach, all horizontal development that makes you think there's a lot here to enjoy, masking the really lack of depth in gameplay and any meaningful long-term strategic choice for the player. Honestly, it's a super weird place to be. I mean, on the one hand, people in CA can clearly see Medieval Era is massively popular, and a new Medieval 3, regardless of design issues, which it most certainly would have, would still probably be very successful. But on the other hand, seeing this much requested game be made with the same design ethos we've seen in the last few titles would just be a total waste. I see a lot of people commenting on my videos about this topic saying CA just shouldn't bother at this point. And you know what? To a certain degree, I am inclined to agree. And if the rumors are true that the next historical is actually a World War I game, I'd be even more disenfranchised from the series. I mean, we all saw how Great War the Western Front was such a massive failure. Even though I thought there were some good ideas there, it just simply didn't get enough steam, and the nature of World War I severely limited the gameplay avenues of expansion and slowed the game to a snail pace. CA potentially using that game as a proof point for World War I would just be baffling to me, unless of course they're making it in parallel with a Warhammer 40k game, which is also rumored, which, let's be honest, can both be designed very similarly when you think about it. So yeah, I mean, it's a very weird place to be right now. The worst thing really about all of this is all CA has to look at to get decent inspiration for new historical games are older games like Medieval 2, Shogun 2, Napoleon, Attila to a certain degree, and Three Kingdoms. I'm not saying they're perfect by any means. Each and every one of them had very clear issues, but each at least did something really well, and that is to be a Total War game with depth and meaningful decision making. Medieval 2 had some seriously innovative and punishing mechanics like slow replenishment, population pools, upgradable units that change their battle visuals, and challenging backstabbing AI. Same with Shogun 2, and that had some of the most difficult campaign AI of any game, and the mechanics there were deeply punishing as well. Napoleon and Fall of the Samurai are fantastic examples of how gunpowder warfare and industrial economies on the campaign can really work, and Attila is a great example of an end-of-the-world survival strategy. You don't have to spend millions on 3D modelers and animators to create a fully immersive spectacle of a game, which is how I see Warhammer, to be honest. All you have to do is take a page out of your own book to make an actually fun and meaningful Total War game. So yeah, essentially, it's been a bit of a rant, but what I want to say is, CA, if you're listening, now is the time for a really decent Medieval 3 Total War. I mean, Medieval is properly top of mind. You've got Manor Lords, Lords, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 coming out later this year, it's a really good time to do it. There are fantastic games out there in this historical setting that are successful, and that shows there are plenty of people willing to pay the big bucks for it. You've already got a base of historical players willing to at least consider it, and who knows, some Warhammer players may even be interested as well. If you can just look back at what you did right even once, you might learn what makes a Total War game an actual game of strategy. Give the video a like if you agree or don't agree but simply enjoyed me sharing my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below, whether medieval really is a popular setting right now, if a Medieval 3 could really ever be done justice, or if CA can actually learn from its previous titles. And subscribe to the channel for more strategy game content, gameplay, and commentary just like this. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.